Good day and welcome to another edition of One-on-One with Swope Health. I am your host, Eric Wesson. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks so much for your comments and your emails and your text messages saying how much you enjoy our shows, and keep watching because they're only going to get better. Joining us today is City Councilwoman Ryana Park-Shaw. She is the 5th District in-district City Council person, and she is the brains behind a new $30 million plan to help combat violence in Kansas City. Councilwoman Shaw, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So tell us about you. Where are you from?
Well, I am born and raised here in Kansas City. I've been here all my life, born actually in the 3rd District, and graduated from Ruskin High School. So
okay. Okay, and then where'd you go?
And I went to college at Missouri State in Springfield, and got my bachelor's there. I got my master's degree as well from Southwest Baptist University, and then came back to the Kansas City area and really ultimately me and my husband raised our family out in the 5th District, and have been out there for 26 years or so, 26, 7, 8 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're a businesswoman as well.
That's right. I'm a small business owner. I'm that ding-dong Avon lady calling. Been an Avon lady for over 20-some years, 25 years, I think, as an Avon lady. But my husband and I, we also own, are partners in Crab Kings in KCK, the restaurant there.
Okay. So I was talking to one of my church members, and they said that you were their Avon lady, and you took it to a whole nother level.
That's right.
You got a warehouse and all kind of stuff. So
that is so true. Yeah, actually, I love it. Actually, I believe that my Avon business really was training for me to become a council person, because I love knocking on people's doors and giving them the Avon book. And I developed so many customers that I couldn't service them out of my home. So I ended up opening 2 Avon stores. I had one in Independence and one was actually in Zona Rosa. So, yeah, and I had both of the stores open for about 11 years.
Really?
So, yeah, so I still have my business. It's just online. So everybody's shopping online these days. So I'm still an Avon lady servicing customers. And I have a few that I actually still deliver to, but most of it is delivered by the UPS man. So
okay, that's good. That entrepreneur spirit. So over the past several weeks, you have been spearheading a plan that would put $30 million into crime prevention programs in the Kansas City area. So tell us how that came about.
Well, part of the reason why I even ran for office is I really grew frustrated just scrolling through my phone every day, looking at yet another life cut too short. And I would say to myself, and I would silently pray for the families that I didn't know, silently pray for them. And I would say, oh, Lord, I hope somebody does something. Or, oh, Lord, somebody's got to do something. And one day God put it on my heart that I'm somebody. And that, we are all somebody that can make an impact. And with that, started me to really wanting to run for office so that I could try to really make a difference in just across our community, not just for violence prevention. But, the numbers, as you know, we've seen record numbers in the last several years. And when I continue to pray that I hope we can find a way to solve this. And I had the opportunity to go to Omaha and see their Omaha 360 or empowerment program that they've been working on for 15 years, and to see a population similar to Kansas City and the impacts that they made, bringing an ecosystem together, bringing a village together to work on their violent crimes. And seeing that they were able to reduce their homicides by 27% and their non-fatal shootings by 47%. And there's a lot of other data. They've, increased their job rate, increased their graduation rate, and just a number of other success stories that came from that. And I had an opportunity to go to Omaha in May of last year. And since then, I've been meeting just about every week with about 35 different or more organizations now on violence prevention in Kansas City. And ultimately, it just really encouraged me and inspired me to because I see so many organizations that for years have been doing the work, these grassroots organizations that are having success, but on a small level. And when I learned, I don't know, a couple of months ago or 6 weeks or so ago, we got a report in the finance committee, because I serve on the finance committee with the city, that we have a surplus of $232 million. That really was, I think, could be probably the only time that I'm in council office that this may occur. I felt like this is the right time for us to invest in those community organizations, into strategies that will really help us to be able to impact our violent crimes. And just to kind of go back to the number, while Omaha is similar size, last year when we had 169 homicides, they had 30 homicides. And so when you compare and contrast that, I felt like, this is a proven model, in addition to the fact that the city council 3 years ago voted to adopt a blueprint for violence prevention, which is modeled very similarly to this Omaha 360 plan. And, we had over hundreds of organizations, key stakeholders that worked for 3 years before I even came in office, to develop this strategy. And we as a council supported it, but we never funded it.
Right.
We just did little bits and pieces. And so ultimately, I was, just inspired, and am glad that many of the colleagues across the city, across the council districts, agreed with me that now's the time for us to actually put our money where our mouth is and fund this program.
So when you look at violence in Kansas City, it's very complex. But how do you categorize the most important things that need to be fixed?
Mm-hmm. So just with the many meetings that I've attended, and I don't profess to be an expert in this, but these meetings include many community organizations, neighborhood organizations. We have members from the faith community, as well as Kansas City Police Department there. And it seems like the overarching concern or the overarching opportunity that we have is to really invest in our youth, to provide opportunities for them, whether it's internships, entrepreneur opportunities, counseling, conflict resolution. Trying to invest in our youth is what the evidence shows that will make most impact on our violence in Kansas City.
So investing in youth. So with the $30 million. And it's $6 million a year for 5 years is what's going to be added, and it's coming out of the city's general revenue budget. So a portion of that money then is going to be earmarked by you, hopefully, because you can't really earmark it, but you're going to ask people to make sure that they're focusing on youth programs.
Yeah, so, there are a lot of prevention opportunities or strategies that we could implement. But in essence, the funds will be overseen through our health department. As our director of health, Dr. Marvia Jones, was very instrumental and a leader in developing the blueprint for violence prevention. And then we will also utilize the Violence-Free KC committee, to help us be able to establish how those funds are kind of established. But ultimately, the funds will be available after May 1st, and we will have an RFP process that the plan is that we will we'll create we've got the plan already established, but we will break down into certain percentages of how we would like to use that over the year, and then have an evaluation period so that then we can adjust. And just from the experts in Omaha, as we start to see improvement, then we may need to make adjustments in which sector we invest in. So sectors meaning the faith community, the business community, schools, the neighborhoods, those are the different sectors. And I think that's what has made this model so successful in other communities, is because it creates an ecosystem and a village where they work collaboratively on specific issues, and they actually target and focus in until they start to see success. And they, so it's almost like you're putting all of the army on one particular area, on one particular focus there, so until you see success. And so I'm really excited about what this program and these funds will do for our city.
Okay. And of course, conflict resolution is the buzzword for this part of time in our lives. So in addition to that, the youth, the conflict resolution, will any of the money go toward poverty prevention programs? Because we've got a lot of kids that are in poverty, and they said poverty breeds crime to a great degree. So will a portion of it go into that, or are you going to use housing or something else to help deal with the poverty issue?
Well, so that is a part of it as well. When we talk about the business community, trying to engage opportunities for the business community to invest as well, and creating jobs. Definitely, there will be programs for internships and job opportunities. I'm not sure if you're aware, but several months ago, probably 6 months ago, I actually sponsored legislation to create a municipal academy. And it's kind of like a boot camp for individuals to experience what it will be like working for the city, and to give them opportunities. So we will utilize that program. That's something that the city established in coordination with the Full Employment Council. So utilize our internship opportunities to start with summer programs, but ultimately extend to year-round internship opportunities, and then also having a targeted focus on our municipal academy as well. That will, the city has a lot of open positions right now. So creating opportunities for people to gain access to great benefits and great incomes with the city, as well as other businesses as well. There are other organizations that will be partnering, working with us to try to ensure that we can address the poverty issue with, create job opportunities there.
So you've been pretty busy as a first-term council person. You've got this on your plate now. A few months ago, you had housing and the homeless situation on your plate. So how did you transition in the housing situation? I think you all said do away with homelessness in 5 years. That's going to be a task, but okay, it sounds good. So what's that looking like? How's that plan coming along?
Yeah, so I can't act like I actually have transitioned. I'm still working on that too. But, ultimately, yes, I, for about 2 years, led the mayor's task force on homelessness. And we worked with 40, 50 or so organizations to do a community needs assessment and mapping assessment as well, in terms of, what are the issues, what are the barriers that individuals are having, and what organizations are currently providing services, and what are the gaps. And with that, then we were able to utilize that data and information and create what we call Zero KC, which is built on establishing a housing program and houseless prevention program as well. Because one of the things, and I don't profess to be an expert here either, I need to give that disclaimer, but I have learned a lot in that work over the last couple of years. But one of the things that we've identified is, unfortunately, with the pandemic really showed us many communities that were already marginalized were even more marginalized and continue to struggle. And it is more efficient use of dollars to prevent people from being homeless in the first place. Mm-hmm. So part of that strategy is preventing homelessness at first. But of course, we also have a strategy to help those who are already unhoused or who are experiencing houselessness. And so, it includes working with many different organizations. Reentry concerns are, as individuals are reentering our communities, our cities, we are identifying they've really come without a place to live. Mm-hmm. And so trying to create opportunities and strategies for them, not just about jobs, but having a place that they can go to and move into to call home. And so I do want to add that, it's built off of a program called Built for Zero. And it ultimately, when we say we will get to functional zero homelessness, what that means, and this is a national program, it's a evidence-based model that many cities have adopted over the last 10 or 15 years. And I will say Kansas City actually got to functional zero for our veteran population. And the fact that we were able to get to functional zero shows us that we can actually do it. But when we stopped investing in it, then we lost that certification. But what functional zero means is it is when you have no more people entering homelessness than those who are leaving homelessness. And so you get to a level zero with that. And so that's when we say zero KC or zero homelessness, we're not saying all homelessness goes away. We know that this has been an issue, a problem since Jesus, and it's not going to happen that part is not going to happen in 5 years. But we do believe the model shows that we can get to functional zero in Kansas City with the proper investments and proper programs.
Because it's two things. One is the people re-entering. That group and that segment are kind of, something like people forget about. But I think probably the most detrimental part of people returning from being incarcerated, of course, are sex offenders when it comes to housing, because nobody's going to rent them housing and nobody is going to let them have housing by a school. So that's a very at-risk group right there. But one of the things that I have been able to do over the past several years is go into the homeless camps. And when people say that they're going to eradicate homelessness, you need to go down there and talk to some of those people, because they're not going anywhere. And the one camp that I always have a lot of fun with, because the people in that camp are just so real, is over there across from Lincoln High School. Have you ever been over there?
I haven't been to that one, but I've been to others.
They're a ball. Okay. But, it's one thing, they got beware of dog signs there. And one of the things I notice is when the police go there, they have a SWAT team or a tactical team to go in, ask them if they need services. But I've been up there several times and talked to them. One, it's probably 90% of them have no idea or don't want to leave that environment that they're in, because that's theirs. Right. And even when the weather's bad and they want people to go in the shelters, it's like, Eric, I can't take all my stuff in the shelter. They won't let me. This is where I'm at. They won't let my dog come in the shelter, so I stay out here with my dog, and they are all very comfortable. And I think that that's one of the things that people don't realize, is even though in our way of doing things, it might seem like we have the best intentions, but with their circumstances, it's like, okay, well, you got a point there. And I agree. It's like, this is all I've got. One guy said, everything I own is in that grocery cart. So it might not seem like it much to you, and it might seem like junk and trash, but to me, that's everything I own on this earth. And I'm not putting it somewhere else, and they won't let me take it in I think it was Bartle Hall at that time. They won't let me take it in the Bartle Hall, so I'm cool right here. And so that's one of the things that people don't realize when they're sitting at home watching TV, nice and warm, and eating.
And I agree with that. I've had an opportunity to spend a lot of time in multiple encampments on the Missouri side and Kansas side. In my work as a hospice person, have worked in hospice care. And I'm focused on city council full time now, but my first 2 years actually continued to work full time and worked in hospice care. Frequently would go to the encampments because there are a lot of people with health conditions that weren't getting the resources or services that they needed, and we were actually helping to house them in long-term care facilities or places that were appropriate for them to help them get their health care needs met as well. But I agree with you. I think everybody's at a different stage, and there's no one size fits all fix.
Right.
And so part of the plan, the Zero KC plan, a lot of it is based on trying to meet the person where they are and creating and reducing the barriers that they face. Definitely, you mentioned Bartle Hall. That was early. That was actually my first experience with dealing with those who are unhoused. But we were trying to help people, connect people with permanent housing and shelter and jobs. And I remember it became clear to me when there was an individual who said, I've got my whole life in these 2 bags, and you're telling me I have to leave Bartle Hall right now and go somewhere. You want me to go get a job, but there's no job I can go to that's going to allow me to carry my life, in with me, and I can't leave it anywhere. What can I do with it? And so that actually really was what allowed us, or became the idea for the heart carts that we established, creating an opportunity for people for those who needed a place to secure their belongings. There's a locker that would allow them to be able to do that. And so, ultimately another program that we established, because I participate in the point in time count, which is where over a 24-hour period you count how many people are experiencing houselessness, how many are in the encampments, and just, it's a federal count that we do that actually dictates the amount of funds that come into this region. And so in participating in that, I saw this huge encampment. It was like a community of about 20 folks. They were neighbors. They were like family. But, I think many people who don't experience that assume that they want to live like that and that they want to live in that filth or trash. And one of the things, when I asked them as the council person, if you could have one thing, what would it be? They wanted a way to get rid of their trash. And so that actually became the idea for the Clean Up KC program that we have, where we have people that go in to help. We have nonprofit organizations that go in to help them clean up their encampments, because they don't want to live in that trash any more than anybody else. But they don't have, because we don't have a formal trash pickup, like you do regular residents. They are forced to. And so, being able to build trust with them, help them with that, while offering them services and resources, connecting them to the social work services that they need, so that we can maybe help to eventually house them, or, give them the services that they need. So that's been a great collaboration as well that we've been able to implement through that.
Yeah. And over on the Vine area, that homeless situation, I think it's a lot more intense than people really realize, because you got the homeless camp there. It goes from Vine to Brooklyn. They're up in that wooded area. And we have a lot of fires in that area as well, where people are going in the sheds and things. As a matter of fact, they burned a shed next to the call a couple of weeks ago. One of the homeless people had gone in there, and I guess the fire got too hot or out of control, and it wound up burning their shed down. But that's just something that's very near and dear to my heart, is not only ex-felons, but also the homeless population. So as you wind down on your first term, what can we look for in the second term?
So definitely I have worked in the first term for sure. So you could definitely, one of the things you'll see is I will continue to work and be a voice for those in my district. I spend time doing neighborhood walking tours, bringing the city leadership out into the community, so that we can see firsthand what residents are dealing with, using that as opportunity to empower our neighborhoods. So you will continue to see more of that. Definitely working to implement now this $30 million and ensure that we are properly utilizing those funds and getting them into the community so that we can make an impact. That will be a priority that I will definitely continue to focus on. And, the affordable housing crisis that we have requires everybody's attention. So that is, part of preventing future homelessness and even addressing the situation that we have today.
Well, I would like to volunteer if you put together something to help people with the $30 million in programs to prevent violence, because I think a lot of times when we talk about violence, we get too intellectual with it and we get too data-driven rather than grassroots, been there, done that input. And I was when we were talking, I was thinking about one of the housing worksheets or plans that was put together, 52 pages. It only had one ex-felon conversation in there out of 52 pages, and then there was another one, was 190-something pages, had no mention of ex-felons. So that's a segment that I'm really familiar with, and I know the pitfalls that people coming out deal with and trying to do something to make their transition better, because one of the things I learned, they've already proved they'll commit a crime, and we don't want to set them up for them to be any more victims. So if there's ever an opportunity that I can be a part and lend a voice to that outside of the paper, because I'm pretty outspoken in that area as well, I would love to be a part of that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. We definitely will welcome your expertise there and your work there. I know that that's a gap that the city has, and honestly, until I started really participating in those weekly meetings, didn't understand. I think there's about 1,000 returning citizens every year that are returning to Kansas City, and without a lot of structure or programming or opportunity for them, really, what option do they have but to continue in a life of crime if we don't give them any opportunity to do something else?
Yeah.
So definitely.
And that's probably one of and I've been stomping and screaming about this for years, that's probably the least funded program in the city. You got all these agencies that say they do that, but me and my wife get a lot of people calling us looking for help. I'm like, we don't get funded for this, so call such and such, and then 20 minutes later they calling us again. So, but I would like to see more of that go into the city budget if ever there's somebody in there advocating for that. So, Councilwoman, it's so nice to know, you've got all these businesses and you're doing all these things for the community, and we need somebody to be a voice for the urban core, regardless of whether it's your district, but it affects the whole city. Right. And a lot of times elected officials need to realize that this is a city job, not just a district job. So thanks so much for joining us. We'll have you back on again at a later date and see how things are going, and you can give us a progress report.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. You've been watching One-on-One with Swope Health. I'm your host, Eric Wesson. My guest today was City Councilwoman Ryana Parks Shaw. And as always, I've got the greatest audience in the world. Till next week, remember, tough times don't last, tough people do. Until next week, peace.